Hello and welcome to the Curator Salon podcast. I'm your host, Gita Joshi. Today I am excited to be joined by Jack Bullen from Woolwich Contemporary Print Fair. The Woolwich Contemporary Print Fair takes place in November and it's really established itself as a highlight of the London art calendar. Welcome, Jack.
Hello, Gita. Thank you very much for having me.
Of course. So I am very much looking forward to this year's fair. Can you tell me a bit about its background, how it's evolved over the years?
Yes, of course. So my wife, Lizzie Glendinning, and I set up the fair back in 2016. It really was something that grew out of our gallery, Brockett Gallery, which we'd set up a few years earlier. And we were trying to run these sort of evenings, how to start collecting. And we focused on print because print, obviously, just because of the price point and the collectors that we had, hadn't really started before, and it was a nice way to sort of introduce them to collecting. But when we were running these evenings, we realised there was such a misconception around printmaking. The term print has sort of become synonymous with a sort of throwaway, cheap culture. I'm going to just print off my boarding pass, and so there was a misconception around what print was and whether it was a reproduction of an original painting. And so we'd sort of built on these evenings, and then we were offered this huge space down in the Royal Arsenal, which a huge derelict building, which had quite a lot of issues logistically, but that's how it sort of started, because we tried to do a few exhibitions there, but the space was so vast that anything we did was lost. And at the time we sort of looked around and thought, this is a really interesting thing we're doing. We're getting a really good engagement with people, and we realized there was nothing really out there that focused entirely on contemporary printmaking, and there's such a rich background in contemporary printmaking that we wanted just to sort of bring that to life, really.
Amazing. So you started in 2016 at the Woolwich Arsenal, and did you weren't working the pandemic years, were you?
Yes, we did. So the pandemic years was a bit of a struggle. So we ended up, we were quite lucky with how it fell, really, because I think we went into lockdown. When was it? Sort of March time. Obviously, the fair isn't until November each year, so we had a sort of a long time to sort of prepare and decide what we were going to do. And we found this fantastic software called Kunstmatrix that allowed you to do this sort of virtual show, and that allowed us to keep going. Obviously, there were issues, but it worked really, really well, actually. And it's something actually that's helped us moving ahead. So we run our online edition concurrently with our sort of physical fair, and then it continues for another week. So there's the opportunity for people to come and see it in the flesh, go and then browse later when they come back, or the other way around, and that's really nice. And actually, it's quite helpful for us because when we started back a few years, Lizzie and I would end up having to do all our curation of 400 odd artworks from our curated hang, all in about the space of 3-4 days, which was rather stressful. And so now this software just allows us to sort of make these curatorial decisions much further in advance, which is really good.
On that subject, can you talk a little bit more about the selection process? Do you have a changing panel each year to help you decide who's going to be showing at the fair?
Yes. So I'll just talk quickly about the model of the fair, which is something that we just have slightly stumbled on, but we feel is a really good model moving forwards. So it's a 50-50 split between galleries and our curated hang. So the curated hang is made up of artists who apply via the open call. And then those who are successful through the open call, we will directly represent. And so how it works is artists can apply as long as as long as the work is involved in printmaking in some capacity, then it is accepted, and it's original print. So we get quite a lot of questions each year about what that is. But yeah, we have a selection panel. I think we had about 10 this year, and it does evolve, because we want to make sure that all tastes, and because everything's so personal, we want to make sure that that people feel they're given the fair opportunity. So we revolve it slowly. So most people who sit on our panel maybe do it for sort of 2 years, and then it revolves. And so we try and bring in all sort of people from all over the art world, and so we've had Carolyn von Massenbach from Bonhams, which is really exciting. Dario Lari from Jealous. We've had Gavin Turk this year. So it's an ever-changing group of people. And actually, something I'm quite excited about this year that we'll be running is actually a prize called the Printmakers Printmaking Prize, or Printmakers Printmaker Prize. And artists who are exhibiting at the fair will actually sort of select the artists that they most admire within the fair from the curated hang, and that person will have the opportunity to sit on the panel next year. So it almost gives artists the opportunity to sort of have a voice in the fair.
That's amazing. Yeah, we often use this phrase, an artist. I think of like you and Uglo and people. They're often referred to the artist. So that's amazing to have the printmaker's printmaker.
Would you like to share about your prize?
Yes, so I am excited to be choosing one of the artists that's going to be exhibiting at the print fair this year, to have a 6-page feature in Artscene, which is a Curator's Salon magazine. And we hope to publish that in February. So I will be there on the opening evening, choosing the winner for that prize as well. So I think, yeah, it's pretty exciting.
Yeah, very grateful.
How many pieces do you show in the curated hang?
Oh, it varies each year, just because it depends on sort of scale of artworks. But I think this year we've got something like 635 pieces, something like that, and it ranges from about 550 to 700 artworks, depending on space.
And then, do most artists show more than one piece?
Yeah. So sorry, the process is judged on a piece-by-piece basis. So artists can submit anything from 1 to, I think, maximum 6. And then each artwork is done on a piece-by-piece basis. So artists could get in with all 6. They could get in with just 1, and it sort of works on that basis. So I think a couple of people have got 5 in, and a couple, we've got, people tend to have between sort of roughly 3 or 4 in. It does depend, yeah.
Oh, fantastic. And then for this year, and I think it was there last year as well, but there's more elements to the fair. So you've got the curator's picks, which I am excited to be invited to choose my selection. Who else have you got on the curator's picks wall?
So we have a long-standing relationship with Mirabeau. The co-founder, Jeannie Cronk, has made a selection of works, and they will have their own stand or little area of their selection, because they've started up Maison Mirabeau, which is when they've started collecting, bringing in artworks, working with artists, and so she's got a beautiful display there, which will be really exciting.
And then you also have galleries exhibiting there. I know Jealous are always great at doing demonstrations and really showing how screen printing is done and made. Who else have you got there this year?
We've got Julian Page is coming back, and he's got a whole series of new Bridget Rileys, which is really exciting. Atelier Rose Gray, and Chris is bringing, again, some fantastic arts, including a couple of new Grayson Perry's Eames, Oliver Projects, Bonhams are joining us this year. Paupers Press are joining us this year, which is really nice because they joined us for our sort of COVID online year. So it'll be nice to have them join us physically. Who else? We've got Thameside Print Studios who are nearby in Woolwich Docklands. Oh, and Brockett Gallery, which will be exciting. So Lizzie and I finally sort of allowed the gallery to come in and have its own stand under its own sort of brand rather than as a sort of organizer of the fair.
Amazing. So you've got some really known galleries, but also like the printmaking workshops there as well, like Thameside and East London printmakers. They've really, been associated with some really amazing printmakers that I've worked with as well.
Yeah.
Is everybody that showing British artists?
Yes, I mean it's not like it's not set up to say, these are British artists. Both the galleries represent artists from all over the world, and again, our open call. We have artists who apply from all over the world. We've got artists from Iran, America, Spain. Just off the top of my head. So it's we try and expand our reach as much as possible, and we work with print studios from all across the world to try and promote the open call, bring people in, help with the logistics behind exhibiting in other countries.
When does the open call actually open?
So it runs from the beginning of May to the end of June. So it's a 2-month window each year, and so we will sort of announce the panel in advance so people can see, and then there's sort of a 2-month gap which gives people hopefully enough time. Although it's always rather always ends up with these things. Always ends up being we get floods right at the very end.
Yeah, I know that's how it always goes. I often wonder if it's worth having a really short submission window, but I don't know. Yeah, it's always 80% at the end, isn't it? So talking about printmaking, what do you love about printmaking? Original printmaking. Actually, why don't we explain what that is? Why don't you go ahead and do that?
Oh, an original print. So how we phrase it, an original print is something that has been conceived as a print in its initial concept. So someone hasn't produced a painting and thought, oh, well, that's brilliant. Let's reproduce that or photograph that. So somebody has sat down and decided to make something that they consider to be a print. So it could be a mono print, mono meaning one, and so it's run through the press like that. It's a very broad term, and it's a very difficult one to sort of try and sort of pin down exactly. But that's sort of how we define it.
I've been at other fairs where they have a cap on, like if you were going to show or sell prints, then it couldn't be an edition of, and then they would fix this number. Do you have that with Woolwich Contemporary Print Fair?
Yeah, so each print is will have on it an edition size. So all ours are it's up to the artist really. So to how many they will cap it at, but each original print should be signed by the artist, and then also have its edition number. So it might be 1 of 35 or 4 of 35 or 1 of 100. It can vary. On the whole, our works tend to be sort of in the sort of 30s, 40s range. I think when it gets to about over 150, it's sort of considered not to be a sort of a limited edition work, just because it gets so big. And this is also down to the sort of materiality of printmaking that people might not realize. But to make a print, you have to put this your plate or matrix, which is what you've actually done the sort of the drawing. You've created the image on that, and you have to put a lot of force through a press to get your print. And so each time, whether it's an etching, which is sort of a metal matrix, or a wood block, which is obviously wood, that pressure can deteriorate your plate. So traditionally, it would be based on what you as an artist would think that your image, your matrix could actually produce. And so it's only when now we've got to the modern era with sort of digital printing and things like that we've been able to expand into the higher range.
And the same with screens as well, like they deteriorate after a certain number of pulls of ink through them as well, don't they?
Exactly. And to be honest, it's also a really time-consuming thing to do, especially if you're doing say a silk screen with I don't know, 25 colors. That's sort of 25 times you've got to run an individual piece of paper through the press, and you know, and then if you're timesing that by, I don't know, a series of 100, that's quite a lot of work and time. So it's also down to the artist and how much time they can set aside.
I used to sell quite a lot of prints, etchings, lino, screen prints when I had the gallery space, and I just really enjoyed like having, you know, printmakers on my roster of artists. What do you love about printmaking?
When I was in art school, I always had an issue with this idea of sort of the artist on his own in his studio, battling his demons, you know, on his own, you know, the artist first to the canvas. And I'd gone and popped into the print room, and it was so wonderful because it was such a friendly environment. It was sort of a real community, which I think I was sort of lacking. And that's just sort of really the nature of printmaking, because it's a sort of very much a sort of as a sort of a community, both in making the piece between all the ateliers, all the people in the studios, the technicians, yourself. Also, you're just having to wait your turn as an artist. In most print studios, they're open access, so you have to wait your turn to run your print through the press. So you're getting each other coffee, a cup of tea, you have a chat, you watch the work go through. And I love the fact that you never really actually know what it's going to turn out like until you've got it out, because it's in reverse. But this goes further into it's not just the actual making side of the print world that has got this community. It also comes down to sort of collectors and galleries. You know, the fact that they're multiples allows people to have an engagement with each other that you don't really necessarily get with not originals, but with paintings or unique sculptures and unique artworks. Because you can, because there's a sort of, I find with our collectors, people get excited when they've bought the exact same piece, you know, and there's that sort of link in there. You're not trying to vie for the same work that you, so there's a sort of friendly atmosphere. It also then comes down even with the galleries, you know, you're sort of you can lend works between galleries, and you can sort of share and promote each other, because you might have a piece of work that's in two shows at once. So there's a really friendly atmosphere, both from the collectors, the gallerists, and the artists, and it makes things just a really enjoyable part of the art world to be involved in.
I love that. Yeah, I've definitely experienced that both as a collector and as an art dealer, you know, where people are excited to have the same work as somebody else. And, you know, it immediately establishes like this connection and rapport and, you know, area of common interest, right? They're both interested in these particular artists. Jack, can you share the dates for the 2022 fair?
Yes, so it runs from the 3rd to the 6th of November as a physical edition. And then our online edition runs again from the 3rd, but until the 13th of November. So if you can't make it physically, you can still see it online.
Fantastic. And this is over at Woolwich, which is made much easier to get to now, isn't it, with the new Elizabeth line?
Oh, yeah. So it's so exciting. I mean, we set the fair up, what was it? This will be our 7th edition. We were told on setting it up that Crossrail will be open in the next 2 to 3 years. So this really is our sort of breakthrough year. I think it sort of limits the journey from an hour plus from central London to only 20 minutes. So it's very, very exciting.
Yeah, I think last year I arrived by boat, so it was its own thing. Sorry,
so I was going to say, which is equally an amazing experience. If you do come down, I do suggest maybe getting the boat back. It is an amazing experience. But yeah, get the Elizabeth line there, and then once you've had a fun time at the fair, take the boat back.
Well, I am very much looking forward to this year's fair. Jack, thank you so much for joining me on today's podcast. I will add the link to the fair where you can get tickets and all the details in the show notes. And if you subscribe to my mailing list, which I'll also add a link in the show notes to, then Jack's team has kindly offered some comp tickets, so you might even be able to get a couple of them. Thank you so much, Jack, for joining me today, and I look forward to seeing you at the fair.
No, thank you very much for having me. I've really enjoyed it.